a remarkable person, a remarkable poet. She writes a poem every day. She just turned 92 on Thursday, and the poems she writes are published. 55 last year, and on the same, pretty much the same pace this year. She's been writing poetry for many, many decades, but up until a few years ago, she was doing collages, and the collages were sort of like the Joseph Cornell combination of disparate images, which I always thought of as visual poems. Her poetry is much like the collage. It brings together in juxtaposition the most unusual combinations of words and phrases and ideas and images, and the poems aren't always easy to enter into, but I think she's picked ones today that are, so I will yield.
Well, thank you all for being here. So wonderful to see you all. And I want a special thanks to my ex-husband, Sam Schultz, and to my wonderful son, Ron Schultz, who was really responsible for helping to put this book together, and to my dear friend, Judy Marcus, who did this lovely painting, which is then now on the cover of the book. So, with that said, we'll get on with the show. Okay. This first poem was an attempt to imagine what a cultivated or cultured businessman might possibly do on his lunch hour. It's called The Daily Visit. Even in the museum's artificial light, Rembrandt wastes nothing on deceit. The portrait is himself at 54. At noon, as usual, before the business lunch, excuse me, the daily visitor, excuse me, the daily visitor stands focused, briefcase slanted at his feet. Again, it's the folded cap, a vivid whiteness against the dusky background, and those clear, reflective eyes between the brows, that minuscule dark stroke. The visitor imagines talk at a table over wine. He hears the artist speak some common language. How Saskia, his wife, wanting to be remembered, made stipulations in her will, as though the reds grown deep, the browns in the wrinkled paint were not enough, as though the, excuse me, were not enough, as though the price for chiaroscuro hadn't been paid twice, once for her and once to the patrons who said no. Darkness wasn't unfair, only true. The visitor would answer that the color of his sleep had made the dirty business under polished nails too clear. See this hand, the artist might reply. It's perishable, just like yours. Never mind how it trembles. The line holds firm. This poem is sort of like one of the ones that Norm was describing. It sort of leaps around, and in fact it's similar to my husband's first book called The Marriage of Everything. It's called Beyond the Headlines. If I ride the bus to the end of the line, I might discover the existence of God. In the Sudan, a girl of 15, shamed by the stab of rape, sits with her newborn, confronts me on page 1. It's Rosh Hashanah. Not everywhere is today, but the New Year has no calendar. I find more comfort in the man of 59 who walks the city streets on weekends, in among a potpourri of factories and power lines. No destination. Beauty, even in the ugly, he declares. Happiness, says a Dodger fan as he buys the whole right field pavilion, rests with a Giants record homer he might capture on the fly. I'd get on my knees to the goddess of mercy to save New Orleans from the devastation of Ivan the hurricane. But prayer, alas, is mother only to the supplicant. Recently, I learned a monk devised the pretzel, a tribute to our folded arms. In the midst of stings and consolations, I sing through the window at the dried out meadow, stirred by the sudden silver of unpredicted rain. Okay. I think I'm going to sit down. This one is called Celebrating Lottie at 70. Very, very dear old friend. Such years, this sharing, and now you're here too, as though here were a place, a landscape with its own climate, a garden perhaps, where we've met again and again, come by boat on the river, each of us rowing in turn. You think of other gardens, houses that assemble your days with him, with children, alone. A light shaded by trees, not quite clear, but clear enough. I see you coming indoors from the brisk fall air, flushed, aches, old pain, carried in with papaya, kiwi, oranges, and pears, heaped in a basket on your table. Your dress folds full and soft, and as you sit beside the window, images gather like orioles, first one, then another, until stirred by the birds, you move, you improvise from what you know and what you don't. A brave assertion. Look how the long bridge forms, this rope you've braided, the way you've marked. Okay, let's see, the next one is this one. This is a poem that expresses the power and beauty of nature. At the root of power, the burst of gold medallion blossoms, each a plump bouquet, crowning the tree just south of Pico Boulevard, could have changed the course of history. The czar of all the Russias would bow down, decree land grants to all the people. Napoleon, transfixed, avoid his Waterloo, depriving the commander of his glory. George Washington, undone by his amazement, would take to his pen to abolish slavery forever. Dazzled, I reel into the highway of my time, curving ear and mind to barren ground, my flight falling in the wake of Icarus. Let's see, what do we have next? There we go. Oh, here's the question of who gets recognition. It's called No Auld Lang Syne. Never mind Akhmatova. We've heard her boots with bells reverberate despite the footprints in the snow. Don't raise a cup to Einstein either. Who could forget that bushy hair wired for the fifth dimension? And Madame Curie, all the toasts already made assure her place in radiant history. No, no, let's drink to the man who hauls away our garbage, to the old woman still hoping for something she can remember, to the infant pushing her life this moment toward the light she's been dreaming of. And if there's is champagne enough, let's give another hoist to the boy who laughs at the tired shadows on the wall and paints his reckless masterpiece with no further expectations. Okay, let's see what we have next. Here we go. Next. Oh, this is somewhat sad toward the ending. It's my wonderful, marvelous daughter died 3 years ago. I think many of you know that. And this poem is partially about that. In the multitude of mercy, to make a breakfast of first light, the lake parades its silk. Eyes become the conduit for reeds and myth. Orange behaves like winter fruit, the burst undressing the air, a spill, a sprawl, a spray. Your breath keeps March arriving on the calendar. Shadow finds its night, shifting shape as the press of loss extends its shiv into my bone. Yes, this too is in the symmetry. Her ash interred, earth mingled, leaks into the ambient soil of Bouchard Gardens. A woman hears a crackle in the snow. A sudden morning, iris, purple-crowned, weather passes through on its way to everywhere. Venus bends her light for at least 1 billion years. Let's see. Number 7. Here's some more. What did I do with it? Let's see. Number 7 is now. We'll skip to number 8. Oh yeah, here it is. I'm sorry. This poem begins with my trip to the ophthalmologist, and it sort of goes off from there. It's called Adjustments. The day had a long, narrow feel. I squeezed myself into it, but the ophthalmologist said he played a recorder despite his new cane, a compass and flute included. My eye had no unfinished insights except when he mentioned gay marriage. Is implant the same as embedded? Words, he said, don't say what they mean. The lens he slipped in might have made everything clear. The world doesn't revolve around understanding. The Ingmar Bergman movie gave us more than enough to talk about. The lover was a brute, my husband said, and she had a perfectly happy marriage. The heart knows no logic, according to Woody Allen. Things must still be worth seeing. Surgery at 87 carries a certain belief in the hereafter. My altered eye makes the yolk seem yellower. The taste of everything has a curious brightness. Let's see. This. Oh yes. This one. This one was written from the point of view of a Stradivarius violin, an instrument to light the fruit, the wine. My wood grows tired, said the Stradivarius. A Bach partita seeps through the molecules, the grain. Nuance of music renews my zeal. I come from ancient seed. My Ice Age origins stirred dormant roots to promise sound that rivals hope of heaven. The dedicated warmth of fingers on my strings excites the sun's own moment into play. I am no moon, but another sun, each hot ray tuned toward yet to come. Oh yes. As many of you know, I've had 3 bouts with breast cancer, and here I am. This is called 340 Rads, and it's for my radiologist. Twice a day, on the obliging gurney, under the searing lights, I lie, my left breast wired to my guardian. They tend me, each efficient in their grace, each more aware than I of consequences. Then they close the door. I'm left to feel the hum, the music, hot with rads, a trumpet charging at a frequency beyond the ear. In obedience, I keep my body still, but ghosts of old departures shake the mind. At 86, this third encounter calls whatever gods may be to fill my cup once more, to meet the day, break bread, receive, as this procedure ends. Only the final sting remains. The gurney turns. The radiologist prepares the site. He diverts with talk of holidays, and then, with a skillful yank, the conduit device is out. "Oh, that was bad," he cries. It was. Okay, let's see what we have. All right. This one was written very long ago when I was very active in the workshop at Beyond Baroque, and it was published by the Baroque magazine. It's called Discoveries in the Air Between, with the superscription. We left much more, left what still is. Wallace Stevens. This morning, the shadows of gulls, diagonally descending, moved across my neighbor's wall, its variety of rectangles no longer firm. A cat, blacker than shadows, the killing claws, lay folded, still, pressed to a window's glass. A moment later, I looked up. The cat was gone. The curtain hung without motion. Traces of birds, of the black cat, hold necessity like water. At the origin of this and that, 2 windows open, seer and seen, caught in the communal air. How, in the late afternoon, the cat, neither memory nor visible event, springs at a moment, random and exact. Let's see, where am I now? This poem is about my mother. As many of you know, I was left an orphan at 8. This is about what I knew of my mother. It's called Mother Traces for Helen Aylsworth. Her body almost under waves, yellowed, sunken flesh. She tells me not to look. Go to the window, she says. I'm 8, brought home for her, for more than I could know. The leaves have gone to red too early, forcing her to fall into October's end. Now in the blaze, the lending light of scarlet clivia on my table, the snapshot, she as a gypsy woman, smiling vagrantly, long black hair to brush, printed words she wrote. She left me what we might have shared, how she recited Keats and Whitman, books, the few that came to me from family shufflings, chosen poems, checked, her thoughts like seedlings in the spill of seasons. I see the crowd of siblings, there were 9, the narrow rooms, the sparse gentility of immigrants. She wrapped herself, found refuge in her pencil's thread that broke, and left me loved, then stumbling toward the width of my own door. This poem is called Past as Present, and it sort of dips into my childhood after my mother died. I was taken in by my aunt and uncle, a rather different atmosphere. It's called Past as Present. A new universe comes into view, a second world, Sir Francis Bacon. Are they resting or waiting? Wind is an event for small wings. I waited, a child in a cubicle of rules. On the grass in the garden, I understood the blue horses, even against the inevitable sky. I could disappear in the surround of air. Fear rode on the daylight moon. In the house of wide-mouthed rooms, no place for caution. The grandfather clock at the foot of the stairs strikes its hour in my bones. This trace, primordial as Lucy, flings me to the first, not second world. Never mind the music, words. These fingers touching water, touching skin. This poem, a dear friend, unfortunately wasn't able to come here today, is a photographer, a wonderful photographer, and she and I are working together. She sends me the photographs, and they give me impetus to write a poem. And this is one such poem. It's called Early. She gets, that's the other thing you have to know, she gets up before the crack of dawn and goes out and goes onto the beach and takes pictures. Early morning homage for Judy Raffle. Was the ocean surprised? She in her nightgown at 5 a.m.? Surely the heron, out of its element, strutting the beach, took her to be a sister intruder, clicking some strange device. Her eyes grew wide with white, seen through the lens, crowding her amazement. This indeed, a morning's minion, a blend of woman, bird, earth, and sea, under a pale dawn sky filling its cup. And this will be the last poem, and it's a love poem for my husband, wonderful husband. This cup of days, the quiet breath in bed beside me, holding this reverence, even as you doze on Sunday morning, discarded news, now heaped and jumbled, no longer urgent as the surge of sleep. Encounters for some distant deep remove you to a temporary burrow I cannot reach, though I am passenger. No need to tell. In waking, it all travels with us, as though doors and chairs and windows, images across the screen, the black and white of pages shared, the knives and forks, this daily fill, stretch out and toward. What rises on this morning, may its tribe increase, will underline your name, the letters formed to herald love.